Hello and welcome to Diminishing Returns. This week we're looking forward to Wonder Woman, and in anticipation of it, we're taking a look back at Suicide Squad, the previous film in DC's current cinematic universe. A few quick points of note. One, we recorded this episode before the buzz had started to come in for Wonder Woman. Apparently it's meant to be pretty good, so I hear, so that's good news, I guess. I'm looking forward to it. Also, Robert Zemeckis is now in talks to direct the upcoming The Flash movie, which does sound like they're kind of doing what we suggest they do in this episode, quite frankly, as you'll hear later. And also, finally, in a sadder instance of time making fools of us all, we also recorded this episode before Roger Moore very sadly passed away, so I just thought I'd better explain why Calvin casts him in his sequel pitch, and none of us acknowledge his passing. Calvin's made a number of tributes to the man that meant so much to him on his usual social media channels, so if you are a Bond fan, then you might want to go and have a look at that. But that's enough sad stuff for now. Just let it be known that this episode contains spoilers for Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and of course, Suicide Squad. Enjoy!
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Diminishing Returns, the podcast where we watch films, talk about them a bit, and then pitch our own ideas for sequels. As always, I'm Alan, and with me are Calvin.
Well, I'm only sometimes Calvin. Hello.
And Sol.
Other times I'm Mother. Hello, Mother.
Straight in with the impressions.
The Psycho
Brilliant.
Psycho episode's still available. Go to SoundCloud / Diminishing Returns podcast, something like that. What is it? Whatever you get your podcast.
We'll edit it in.
And with us, as always, is Sol.
Yeah, hi. I laughed so hard then because I was just about to say exactly what Calvin said as like a joke mocking him in his voice, and then he did it for
me. Right, so this week we are looking at Suicide Squad. Now, why are we looking at this? It's kind of in a build-up to Wonder Woman. Which is, they're all part of the same universe, so they're not connected, really.
Well, they are, aren't they?
Yeah. But it's an interesting one for us because it's the first time we've looked at a film that was released while we've been around, isn't it?
Oh,
as in sequels too.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Because we've reviewed films that have come out, obviously, but this is actually taking it the next step.
Last year we reviewed a film in anticipation of Suicide Squad when we looked at Batman v Superman.
Yeah, you're right, because we've done this with Marvel films, but we sort of looked at different corners of the Marvel universe each time. So you're right, this is the first time we've gone back and directly done an episode that we were looking forward to in a previous episode.
So that does mean we've actually talked about Suicide Squad before, because we talked about it as the potential of it when we were doing Batman v Superman and what we were expecting. And then because it was one of the films we were looking at, in our review at the end of the year, in which we round up reviews of the films we've looked at over the last 6 months, we did talk about Suicide Squad. And we had some controversial opinions on it.
Yeah, you two butt heads with each other.
Well.
Should we listen back? Should we remember?
Oh.
I can't believe that you, Alan, are going to be the person defending Suicide Squad.
I can't believe it either. And I must admit, I was pleasantly surprised by Suicide Squad. There's a lot of flaws to it, but I basically enjoyed it. I kind of watched it as a solid action film. I can tell you all the things that are wrong with it, but I enjoyed it. I like the direction of it. I think David Ayer brought that film together.
What? Oh my God, he brought it together.
Yeah, I think
No,
that's a
this
film
film
that
was
could
brought
fall
together by
apart
committee.
so easily.
This was a bunch of execs sat around a table thinking, cut that, do this. I would be amazed if he was in the editing room, like, in post-production. I'm stunned.
Well, maybe. Let's try and recreate it.
This film is a shit. Oh well, I reckon it was about as good as the Avengers, to be honest. Oh, that's outrageous. I'm seething.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. No. I'm really happy that we're revisiting this. And Sol, I'm especially interested to know what you think of the film, because you could be the kingmaker in this debate.
Yeah, when we did our review of the year 2016, still available. Go and listen. It was a good one. When we did that, I hadn't got round to watching Suicide Squad because normally I, like many people, just sort of go and watch these films regardless of if they're meant to be any good. But I just had enough, and I felt like they're never going to learn if I go and watch their films, even when they're meant to be shit. So I took a stand for once and didn't go to see it. And enough times now passed that I've been able to rent the thing and watch it. So yeah, as you say, I'm going to be the deciding opinion on this debate. King Solomon.
Fair and wise. Well, I'd like to address something first. Obviously, I was the apologizer of Suicide Squad when we reviewed it originally, and it was very much like I went in with little to no expectation and kind of got a decent little action film out of it, and that was kind of my defense of it. And like after we went back and forth. I think what I actually gave it was a 7 out of 10.
Don't say you don't like it, because you're going to ruin my next bit where I give my opinion.
Well, basically, I've rewatched it. I suspected that it wouldn't live up to it, the same opinion on a second viewing. That has been.
God, he's going to say it got better.
That is, I think it might be my favourite film ever. Well, yeah. Let's just say when I looked at it with a more analytical eye, the flaws are more obvious. But I think, basically what it was is I went and, the classic cinema experience. I just enjoyed the film for what it was. It was a spectacle. I was there with a lady. I may not have been fully focused on the film. And then, so sitting down watching it on DVD, yeah, it didn't particularly hold up to my previous thoughts.
How did things go with that lady? Was she desperate for just anything to take her mind off the film when you were watching it, that things went very well, or
yes.
Or is it such an awful experience that you just never spoke again and went your separate ways?
Well, both, actually.
So after you saw it at the cinema, you gave it a 7 out of 10. What's that rating like now after this most recent DVD viewing?
4 out of 10.
Oh my god! That's a meteoric drop.
I know it was because I was watching it so coldly and just like it wasn't like an experience. I was like, "What's that about? What's that about?" And indeed, I made notes, and so I literally was writing down all the things that were annoying me.
Huh. I thought we were going to have a good old Barmy on this record.
I'm really quite disappointed, Alan, because I was getting ready to just come in and call you a fucking lunatic because I watched this film, and bear in mind I went in with lower expectations than even you because the film's been and gone at this point, and the only positive word I'd really heard on it was from you. Giving the film a 7 out of 10 on our official Diminishing Returns Facebook page, which still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I think you should go back and edit that out. I don't like that that's up there for everyone to see.
I'll have to put a PS on it.
I was expecting a bad film. I was flabbergasted, blown away by just how bad a film this is. Like, I was expecting something fairly watchable, some enjoyable moments, kind of like Batman v Superman. This film is so bad, it boggles the mind. Like, it feels like someone was trying to make a bad film, and then all the executives came in and just elevated it to brand new levels of shitness.
I think I think the whole thing's fatally flawed, though, because I think what it all comes down to is they're trying to do far, far too much and set up all these characters because they're trying to catch up with the Avengers. I guess they like, rather than doing the groundwork.
I disagree. I don't think that's a problem. I think films like the Avengers. I mean, yeah, you can make the argument. Oh well, there was a whole film where Thor, you got to know who he was, and there was a whole film explaining who Captain America was, but loads of people went to see the Avengers who hadn't seen any of those films. I know loads of people who skipped those and just went to see the Avengers, or maybe they'd seen Iron Man, but none of the others. And the film works without... It has about...
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying...
the characters up, and it works without leaning on those previous films. And
I'm not
Guardians
saying...
of the Galaxy that we discussed recently, that works just as well, with about 6 or 7 characters that are all introduced very quickly.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's a good example of how it's done, yeah. But I'm not saying that that's the only problem with it. I'm saying that it's kind of fatally flawed from the start because of what they're trying to do.
What I'm saying is that's not an excuse. There's loads of films with loads of characters that get away with it and do a good job.
Well, that's it. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy is a good example because it's got no... I mean, I know it's kind of connected to the other universe, but there's no real precedent for it. If you go and watch that first film, they have to establish all those characters and the story world all in one go.
And to a lesser, in fact, more than they do in Suicide Squad, because the Joker is such an iconic character that you don't really need to establish who he is. And
yeah, and ultimately we're on Earth, at least. You know, we kind of understand that, and Gotham, and yeah. And
I did my old viewing notes thing that I haven't done in a while, really, as I was going through the film. Shall I just go through those, or? Well,
I did as well, so I presume yours are chronological. So if you go over something that I have, or if I've got something you don't say, I'll bring that up, and then but we'll just fit it in.
So it opens in this what is it, like a criminal containment facility?
It's a prison for like criminally insane, whatever, or something.
Yeah,
but
why? But it isn't Arkham Asylum.
Why the hell isn't it Arkham Asylum?
Exactly.
It's like
That's
Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is a psychiatrist there, and why not just name it Arkham Asylum? Are they saving it back for?
I don't know.
Something else? Are we going to see the origins of Arkham Asylum? I really don't understand why it isn't Arkham.
Okay, then. My notes say we see Will Smith punching stuff, and then he gets beaten. And I've made a note that he looks in surprisingly good shape for someone who's been living on loaf, because they're feeding him like what is it? Just like sludge bread. Or something.
Just shitty prison food, basically. Yeah.
And then we see we see Will Smith, and he's playing what? Deadshot, a guy who can shoot really well. Okay,
yes.
So he's like Hawkeye in the Avengers, but with proper guns.
I mean, he's not that bad. Come on.
and then we meet Harley Quinn.
Yes.
In a iconic first live action feature appearance. So she's in a cage. Why?
Because she's like really dangerous or something.
But a cell would do, and they put her in a special cage in the middle of the room.
Well, it looks a bit better, doesn't it? They need to sort of give each one their own distinct sort of cage. Like the fire guy, like he's in a cage of like water, isn't he? Or he's in that little
tank, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in that tank. Sorry, it's Killer Croc who's in the water thing. So yeah, just for variation's sake.
But Harley Quinn's just she's just a woman who's like.
Sexist.
Like, there's people like that in the real world, that it'd be like the Moors murderers being kept in a special cage, like some sort of Hannibal Lecter kind of villain. You just put them in a jail cell.
You're already touching on why this is a shitty, stupid film, because you've got demon beasts alongside just normal people with mental illness, or someone who's just particularly good at throwing things. It's a stupid concept, and they shouldn't even be together in any sense.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just about how you approach that and write it and make it work. I mean, as we've said, the Avengers makes the same exact thing work, more or less. Like, it's kind of ludicrous at times, but...
Yeah, it's one of the big things I don't like about the Avengers as well, but I mean, they do handle it a lot better, I'll give it that, because the Avengers is watchable and they work it, whereas this doesn't. But I still don't like that about the Avengers. I think it's just a bad concept.
I'm not a big fan of Hawkeye and Black Widow in the Avengers for that reason myself, but it doesn't damage the film enough to, like, be a problem.
Well, okay, so... Basically, if I want to pull a positive into this about the, I like that they have like a main jailer who talks to them and stuff, and eventually they use him for the joke through the Joker. He gets contact with Harley Quinn, but basically, I like that character. I like that they gave him a proper bit of personality. They got an actor who could bring some life to it, rather than it just being like a stuffy jailer or a kind of that could have just so easily been a throwaway character, and they put something into it. So, I'm going with positives here.
Huh. Well, I thought one of the positives surely is Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie. If we could pause and just talk a little bit about the stars.
Well, let's just pause there because most of my notes are saying I hate Harley Quinn. I hate everything about her.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna lean more in Alan's direction with this one. I know she's like held up as the one positive element of the film. She certainly looks the part, but. I didn't think there was anything particularly remarkable about her performance in this film. To be fair to Margot Robbie, like, she did not have much to work with.
Oh yeah, her role in the film is dreadful, but I think in like odd moments here and there,
But even in the individual scenes and delivery and stuff, there was just nothing about what she was doing that made me think, yeah, that's a good take on this character. That's a well-performed version.
Do you think that's because she just does it very like on the nose? Like, I can't say that it isn't sort of, I've seen people in fancy dress do the exact same thing. But I like it.
It's kind of on the nose, but then it's also watered down a bit because my only real knowledge of this character and exposure to this character has been in a cartoon where she is so larger than life. And say what you will about the film, they do embrace that side of the Joker. It is a really larger than life Joker. I felt like Harley Quinn was somewhat muted, just somewhat like to fit this gritty, dark world's take on everything, I suppose. It just didn't feel like she was the outlandish character from the cartoons and everything. And to be fair, I'm not like a huge Harley Quinn fan to begin with. I've never really...
see, I am. One of my favourites from the animated series.
But like, I didn't feel like it was a particularly good take on that character. I just thought it was very just by the numbers. It was kind of just exactly what you expect from it.
Okay, well, how do we all feel about because the star of the film is Will Smith. This is a Will Smith film.
Yeah.
How do we feel about him?
His performance is passable. There's nothing massively wrong with it. It's just very bland, but again, he's not got anything to work with.
Yeah, it's fairly standard Will Smith, but it's not, like good Will Smith is good. Standard Will Smith is standard, and Will Smith's not bringing anything to it. Do you know what I mean? You could put someone else in that role, and if you're going to put Will Smith in something, you want it because he's got that charisma that he can bring to it. And so it just feels so, lost. An interesting part of the film that could be developed is the blurring of good and evil, because the Suicide Squad are ostensibly bad people who are being used for the greater good. That's the idea. But they're regularly, they act in righteousness. Like you say, they don't commit evil deeds particularly. They're quite good moral people in some ways. But then the people who control them, who are supposed to be the good guys, are really kind of generally evil people and act very vindictively, which is a great thing to explore. Like, especially like your evil government, corrupt, shady organization, that sort of thing, and look at the nature of having to commit evil acts for the greater good in war or something like that, or that idea of do you torture someone to get information from them, even though that itself is kind of an act of cruelty? That could be an interesting thing to morally explore. And this film kind of sets that idea up, but doesn't do anything with it. And I think it's all just... It's not been done deliberately. It's just like, okay, so we've got these ostensibly bad guys and we need to make them look good. So make everyone else around them a real pack of cunts so that they look better by comparison.
Yeah.
So it's all still black and white. There's no grey area there. They've just sort of turned it upside down.
Yeah. So that's sort of, we're introduced to all these supervillains in the first couple of scenes. Like you were saying, there's the scene with them all in the prison. And then we have Viola Davis as Amanda Waller come in.
And she's like the head of some shady side of this organization, isn't she? And I've made a note about a line. I think she says it, but it might be someone else. The line is, "We got lucky with Superman. He shared our values. The next Superman might not." This is in a government briefing. Well, that's a load of bollocks because Arkham's full of super beings at this point. They've already got the next Superman. Superman wasn't even the first super being in this world because Batman is like a grizzly old, and Batman has all sorts of like Batman villains. I bet you the first time we see inside Arkham Asylum, I bet you it's full of people like Clayface. And I mean, fucking hell, there's Killer Croc in this one. Like, there's already super beings in this universe. There's already like shitloads of them. So it just, ugh. Wonder Woman.
I mean,
she was knocking around in World War One. I've seen the trailer.
Yeah, but they kept it quiet. But I think it's quite a good concept, isn't it? It's like, okay, Superman was on our side, but if he decided to go like against us, we'd be fucked. I think it's kind of a nice setup.
I mean that happened in Man of Steel though. Like, why not just say, well, Superman was good, but Zod was bad. So
is that part of the same continuity? I don't really know how these things tie together.
Yeah, it goes Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad.
But does it count? I don't know how it works when they just make it.
What do you mean, does it count?
I don't know. They're tying all these stories together, but I don't know if they're like, oh, this is a different Superman. Like, that's not the same.
No, it's Henry Cavill as Superman in Man of Steel, and then he pops up again as Superman in Batman v Superman, and then Ben Affleck as Batman carries on over to Suicide Squad.
Okay.
So it's the same actors. It's the same continuity. It's all part of the plan.
So presumably, when we see Joker again in a proper Batman film, it will presumably be Jared Leto?
Yeah, unless they decide to cut their losses and just bin it, because fuck me, was that a shit Joker. Like, again, he's one of the things I've heard praised and people pulling out is, you know what, he did a good job despite everything else, and people complaining he was only in 10 minutes. It was fucking awful. His performance was so badly thought through. I mean, it was everything I think we said in our Batman v Superman episode, Suicide Squad episode leading into it. Like, it looked as if they were desperately trying to come up with something sort of distinct and different so that they wouldn't be compared to Heath Ledger's performance. But then at the same time, Jared Leto's actual performance under all the makeup was just kind of Heath Ledger, like, doing an impression of him. And it was just awful.
I liked it. I'll stand by it. I'll defend it. Let's have an argument about it.
It's like, it's not that the Joker as a gangster is like a bad idea.
It is.
But Heath Ledger Ledger isn't playing it like a gangster. He's playing it... Sorry, not Heath Ledger. Jared Leto isn't playing it like a gangster. He's playing it like Heath Ledger.
We talk about, he did an impression of James Cagney at one point. I'm gangster, do you want to get?
It looks like the Joker's dressed up to infiltrate a gang or a part. Do you know what I mean? It looks like the start of a caper where the Joker's going to jump, wipe the tattoo off his head and start cackling and going.
He's not.
Ha 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 ha.
He's not playing it gangster, but he's dressed up so much to look gangster with those horrible tattoos and the teeth and the terrible, terrible costumes that he has to wear. And like scenes where he's like falling back and he's like surrounded by all these guns that are arranged in a pretty pattern.
Oh, that was silly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if he'd been playing it like a kind of a new take on the character, where he kind of speaks like this, see, and he walks around with a Tommy gun. I'm the Joker.
Knuckles,
see?
get me the dame.
Yeah, like that might have worked. It'd be a fresh take on it. Yeah. I'm sure someone could make something like that work, or like the actual legit kind of modern day drug dealer kind of gangster they were going for. Like any of those takes would probably work, but Jared Leto and what he's doing and his voice and his body language and his performance have to they have to match up with what they're doing. And there were just about 5 different Joker ideas on the table at once, basically, is what it felt like. It felt like someone had been directing the performance and then someone else had been directing the art design and the
if they'd gone with, look, we're going with the gangster, like 1930s gangster idea, everyone on the same page. Yeah, like you say, if they committed to that, it would have been stronger.
Yeah, and that would have made sense, because Harley Quinn is sort of this mole character, isn't she? This kind of mob wife. So that could
even Jack Nicholson's Joker was that concept, really. Because he's like isn't Jack Palance his boss or something like that in the first one?
My problem is that they've modernised it too much, and it's like, I think there's a quaintness to it when it's like a 1930s gangster. Yeah. I'm not saying I wanted them to repeat that, but all this like gold chains and like it's so.
But even then, his performance doesn't match up with that. Whether or not you like that as an idea, the kind of modern gangster take on it, at least they could have at least been consistent about what they were doing, and he could have made people bite the curb and kick their head in and stuff like that instead of just.
Do we believe all the behind the scenes nonsense about what Leto did? Like,
no.
I hate it all so much. It feels like the publicity was so like, oh, we need to make a big deal out of this because Heath Ledger, we can publicize that he went mad and died because he was playing the Joker and he got so into it. And I find it quite disrespectful to him, actually, that they're so willing.
I can totally believe that it all happened. I can totally believe that Jared Leto sort of went like, I'm gonna get into character and I'm gonna send Margot Robbie a dead rat. And went to the director and went, David, look at what I'm doing here. And then David went, oh yeah, good, that'll be great. And then the rats opened up on set and it's Margot Robbie's assistant who actually opens it. And she sort of goes, Margot, I think Jared Leto sent you a dead rat to get into character. And she's sort of gone, oh, okay. I suppose I should write him a note in character or something, should I? I don't know. Like I can see it. I can see it all happening, just in a very interesting, boring way.
Well, that's just it. It's like they try to make it this mythology about this character that can drive an actor mad and to death and stuff. It's like, oh god, no! It's just it's really not that big a deal, is it?
No, Cesar Romero was fine, wasn't he? He lived a long life. He only died recently.
He didn't even shave his mustache.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's probably also worth talking about here quickly that Jared. Have I been pronouncing it wrong? Is it Leto or Leto?
Oh, I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Oh, Leto then. I'll go with Leto. You can stick with Leto, Sol.
All right.
So
J-Red.
I'm going Leto. Is that all right?
Ah, very good. But he sort of complained.
Leto.
He complained a bit after the finished film came out, and he was saying like, I filmed like all these scenes and none of that is in the film. Like, there's just
well, it probably says something about your performance, Jared, if they have to cut you out of the film.
But were they cutting him out of the film? Or, I mean, the whole character doesn't really have much to do with anything. I suppose we'll talk about it as we get more into the plot,
But it feels like that character should be a small part of this, and it's setting it up for him either a proper Batman film with him as the main villain, or the Joker and Harley Quinn story, which I think could have potential.
Well, I've made a note here about that. They show us too much of that in this film. They give us a really shitty flashback that just basically does the Harley Quinn Joker backstory, but like glosses over it. So now they can't do a film about that, even though it's a great story and one of the, better bits of Batman lore in the past.
And frankly needs the detail. Because doing it in this short way is really dismissive. And so it's like this massive turn where someone who's a psychotherapist or whatever she is charmed by a kind of a sociopath and is totally pulled in, and then somehow turn kind of mentally ill. And we've got to believe that character is completely shifted. And because of the way it's not explored, you don't get a full sense of it. And so you just see it this kind of I'm a female and this is my father figure, I've got weird issues kind of thing. And that could be really well explored and have an interesting character.
That story is a big part of Well, it's the decoder, essentially, as to why Harley Quinn works for people like me who aren't just taken in by her on face value. Like, Mad Love, it's called, the episode of the animated series that kind of first delved into that, and they did a comic issue one-shot that kind of redid the story. But it really explores the psyche of this person and how twisted their relationship is. The fact that the Joker is like just fucking around and using this woman, and then she's like completely in love with him and he's just using her, and it's a really dark but very good story. And it, like I say, it kind of makes Harley Quinn work, and you see her in a new light after that as this kind of deeper three-dimensional entity that she isn't necessarily. And to just have it glossed over as this flashback that isn't very well done is just a waste. And I don't know if that's just to do with how ramshackle this whole film is. I mean, one of the things I suppose I might as well say outright is that watching this film, it was so apparent how much this had been fucked around with in the edit.
Oh, yes. Well, yes. Just to go back to what we were saying, we started talking at the beginning of the film when all the characters are being introduced. There is, we see them all in their cells, and then there's a scene where Amanda Waller, who's played by Viola Davis, is sat at a government dinner, and she's introducing all of these different people. And that stuck out to me as an especially like, oh, Jesus Christ, this was... all this footage that they had, they didn't know how to use it, so they had to cobble together this explanation scene with Viola Davis, like walking, talking us through every single character.
And I did think it was kind of an alright way of dealing with that, though. This kind of heavy exposition. We need to set these characters straight away. Okay, let's just have one character explaining who they are. Like I know what you mean, but for me, they just about got away with it on that, and it was.
I think in theory, it's a good way of doing it, but I think in practice they've not done a good job of it here. I would be fine with a lot of films having someone sit down and just take us through, but I think it's partly the length of each sequence introducing everyone. Like, it's not like a quick, this guy, he fell into a vat of lava and now he controls fire and they call him Tom Thumb Fire Thumb. It wasn't just like a quick 10-second line for each person. It was like a full... and then they'd cut back to her, and there was just no rhythm to it, no pacing. And it also was the start of something that's, again, talking about the edit, so just... basically, Guardians of the Galaxy had come out fairly shortly before. Everyone had gone crazy for the soundtrack. We spoke about this in our Guardians of the Galaxy episode. It's so apparent watching this that someone in the edit just went, oh, well, you've got to put a great soundtrack of just like hits from the 70s and the 80s over every scene. So there's every 5 minutes in this film, just Paint It Black or Ballroom Blitz or some other classic song comes on. And they're mostly great songs, but none of the music fits thematically, the pacing... It just all feels so utterly transparent and cynical, and like the playlist has been decided by a committee of movie executives rather than, how this thing normally goes down, which is the director has been listening to a playlist for months and they've thought, oh, this is perfect for here in the edit, or the editors plucked out a bit of music that they know that they think will work just right, or it just... oh, God. And it just adds to how messy the film feels, frankly. It's this extra flavour that just doesn't gel. Because the film clearly wasn't written or directed or shot or acted with, the idea of a Rolling Stones song blaring over the top of it. So it just doesn't work.
I think this scene particularly sticks out as a scene where after the trailer was released for this film, it was a really popular trailer, they had the Bohemian Rhapsody song on it, the studio passed the film to the company that made that trailer and had them sort of finish the edit. So so you had the people who were editing the trailer, editing the film, and that's one scene where you can really feel it, because this is just cut like a trailer. It's like when you've got all the words appearing on screen, which I hate. But
it's too long. It's too, the pacing's off, and I can only assume that's because it's not been cut to be a minute and a half long, and people who cut trailers might not have as good a grip on editing a 10-minute sequence. Because it just, nothing about the edit, well, for the whole film really worked for me. But certainly that sequence.
That's interesting though, yeah, because that makes sense actually. So if we talk about the individual characters, because I made some notes about them as we were seeing their flashbacks and things.
Yeah, well, I've made a note about not Hawkeye, what's he called? Deadshot here. My note is basically I don't buy it. I don't buy this guy as a superhero, like he's a superhuman shot. I don't buy it. And I think Hawkeye in the Avengers works for me because we always see him like licking his finger, checking the wind, just taking a second before he shoots. Whereas Will Smith in this film, like, he just holds the gun up and shoots and bam, and it's like he hits it. He's just like, he's supernaturally good with a gun. And at least with Hawkeye, they kind of make an effort to make it seem like, no, he's just very talented. And, you know, if there's a loud noise blaring in his ear, it'll probably put him off and stuff like that. And I think that's a key, like, it's a very subtle difference between the two and how they're played, but I think it's a key difference that makes all the difference. And I think it's just indicative of how this film doesn't work, whereas other films do work.
I think that's lost on me when one of the characters is a ghost witch. It's like, yeah, this guy can shoot supernaturally. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but he's not meant to have a supernatural.
Is he not? No, I don't know.
If the guy had like an amulet around his neck that gave him the powers of shooting, fair enough. But
Has he not,
it's set within the real world plus these magic artifacts. It's like if you said Indiana Jones. If in Indiana Jones 5, Harrison Ford could just fly in the third act, and they never like bothered to address it. You're basically saying you defend that because, yeah, well, there's an Ark of a Covenant that melts faces off in that film. What do you want?
Well, I would say opening an Ark and everyone's face being melted by some sort of spirit is as much of a diversion as, oh, he can suddenly fly now. Makes
no, it isn't,
sense.
Because it's justified within the story and the world. Like, this is set within our world plus these elements that they're throwing in. And at no point do they throw in supernatural shooting ability. He's meant to be just a really talented guy.
Like what? Who is he supposed to be? Because like when he's with you see him with his daughter, and he's like wearing a pimp hat with a feather in it, and just sort of like strolling around town.
That Batman cameo. So yeah, Deadshot's hanging around with his daughter, and then Batman appears, doesn't he? I mean, that really annoyed me. Because basically Deadshot could have killed Batman.
Yeah!
And for, like, as far as we know, he would have killed Batman. There's no reason why this character wouldn't kill Batman, from what we're told. So Batman's doing a shit job as well, putting himself in danger in a way that Batman's not meant to do. And the only reason Batman doesn't die is because Deadshot's daughter happens to be there.
Don't kill anyone, Daddy. So are we yet at... Because the narrative of this film is so all over the place that I have trouble remembering at which bit is which. When is the bit with Batman, the Joker, and Harley Quinn, when they're in the car? Is that here?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
So yeah, is that when we get a bit of their backstory, the Joker and Harley Quinn and who they are, and we just see a bit of Batman jumping on a car and...
All while Viola Davis is eating that steak and talking with a mouthful, and it's really unpleasant. Like, cause there's all these close-ups of, like, and her and all these people, and they're just like, oh, "Yeah, I'm Batman." It didn't help.
So again, I'm going back to Margot Robbie's performance here, but like her accent is severely toned down from the cartoon. Whatever bit of New York that is, like the Bronx or whatever, probably going to upset some American listeners. I don't know which bit.
Oh, she was definitely Southern at one point.
But
later on, she was doing like a Texas accent.
But why is that accent so...
Hey, Mr. J!
Yeah, it's just like really full on.
That's a proper gangster's mold. Yeah, 1950s.
Yeah. That's the whole point of it.
And Margot Robbie does that in The Wolf of Wall Street, which I assumed was why they cast her, or part of it. And they've severely toned down what she did in The Wolf of Wall Street for this film. And I don't understand why.
Maybe it could just get annoying after a while. I don't know.
Maybe, but people love Harley Quinn, and that's what she is.
Yeah.
I don't know what my next note means, so maybe you'll remember. I've written another idiot falling into a cave. Come on.
That's the witch woman. Oh, as she's known, Dr. June Moon.
I remember. You're right, because we see her as an archaeologist, don't we? Before she,
yeah.
Oh, you know what? I've written. It's because that's what happens to Batman.
Yeah,
it's because it's like watching Batman fall into his bat hole at the start of all his films.
Yeah. So that's our main villain of the main antagonist anyway is Enchantress June Moon.
And then my next note is archaeologists don't see ancient bottles and snap their tops off. The woman opening that thing is stupid.
Has there been an iconic comic book movie villain since Heath Ledger's Joker? Because all these modern superhero films, they all have these villains and they're always dreadful.
Loki.
They're always the most bland. Okay, fair enough, yeah. You got that one,
yeah. Loki was 2011 or 2010, though. It's still been quite a while since. I mean, Bane was iconic, whether or not it was
shit
a sort of joke or people taking it seriously is sort of another thing, but
she's just the Enchantress. They say that this whole film is supposed to be a team up of villains. You'd think they'd have to go against something really bad, and she's just very weak, and that weird walk that she does when she's like possessed by the witch is peculiar and not very scary.
There's a line of dialogue that really annoyed me when they're dealing with the witch, because what happens is like a load of government people take control of her or something, basically, don't they?
They don't believe it, so What's-Her-Face has to prove it by getting her to do something.
And so the line that really annoys me is, some say the witch's heart is buried, so we searched the place and found it. Here it is. Well, if you found it, then it's not some say, it's a fact, you fuckhead. Like, what? Who's writing this shit? Who wrote Suicide Squad?
Well, the credited writer.
How many
is
people
the
are
director.
credited writers on it?
No.
Only one. David Ayer is the only credited writer, but I suspect there were plenty of hands in it. Yeah, I don't know.
Going back to that 30-minute flashback sequence at the start, explaining who everyone is. If you're not going to bother explaining why Killer Croc is a crocodile man, then why do any of them? Either have some faith in an audience's ability to just go with it,
No, I mean, sorry, you've picked up on, like, because I cited this out in our Review of the Year episode. This film gives no credit to its audience. You, as an audience member watching this film, are not expected to remember or, retain any kind of information other than what you're seeing in that very moment. And the scene that I cited then, and I cite it again now as evidence of that, is when they're talking about Katana, who has this saber blade thing, and everyone that she kills with it, their soul is like captured into the blade or whatever. And they drop this in at a couple of points in dialogue throughout the film, and they drop in mentions that, she killed her husband with it, and this kind of she's killed her husband, and we're supposed to sort of make the connections. And me as an audience member thinking I can put two and two together. I know that she killed her husband with that sword. So as if that wasn't enough, they then have to have a scene of her like talking to the sword, and she says to the sword, "My dear husband, if I die in battle, we will finally be together." So, okay, fine, I get it. Like, you've underlined it, I understand she killed her husband with the sword, she's talking to him. But then immediately after that line, they have the fucking army man, and his line is, she killed her husband using that sword, his soul is trapped in it, she talks to him. That is the line. And it's like, do you not have any faith in the audience at all to retain any kind of information? I honestly don't think we're supposed to remember anything that happened more than 30 seconds ago.
It is really important that they highlight that again, because then later on, it never becomes relevant whatsoever. And in fact, that character is not relevant at any point and could be removed from the film. We don't get anything about her husband. The sword doesn't trap someone's soul where it's really important that it matters. Nothing whatsoever. That character was unnecessary. Dr. Croctopus was unnecessary. What were the other ones? The Boomerang Boy wasn't particularly necessary, but at least he kind of brought a different personality to it.
Well, he's there for comic relief, like you say, but write it so Killer Croc gives the comic relief, or give Deadshot some more jokes, or make Harley Quinn the comic relief. Like, because why is she in the film, frankly? Based on the trailers and stuff, I thought she was there for some intelligence reason. Like, these guys were sent after the Joker, so they needed someone close to the Joker.
That would have made more sense.
That would have been good.
Like, infiltrate or knew the ropes or something like that. But as it stands, she doesn't have any business being there. She has no business at all. She hasn't got any powers. She hasn't got any specific street smarts. She's inexplicably really strong in this film at certain points when it suits them.
And she's not well. Like the others are all kind of like, perhaps you could say they're evil even, or kind of ruthless. She's mentally ill and like unpredictably so. And there's a danger to herself and others. And that's not someone you want in a sort of clutch situation.
Yeah. And again, going back to the Joker, so we get another Joker scene after they're done introducing us to everyone. And it's where we see that the Joker he's not like manic and insane in quite the same way in this film. He just appears to be obsessive compulsive. Because he's laid out a load of knives all over the floor in a way that would have taken hours. He's spray painted the words ha 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 on all the walls in a very deliberate way that again would have taken hours. I mean, it feels very much like this Joker is some emo kid who's learning HTML so he can make his MySpace look exactly how he wants.
And that's complete style over substance, isn't it, basically?
And when does the weird flashback with the Joker and the vat of chemicals happen? So what was that?
Yeah,
like I genuinely don't know what the fuck's happening.
I didn't get. I look. My note here is I don't get the scene with Harley and Joker in the vat of goo. So I echo your thoughts exactly. So does the goo mean anything? Is it like a toxic waste?
Do none of us
thing?
Get it at all?
It's supposed to be her proving that she would like literally give her life to appease him, isn't it? That's what I took it as. And she's like, yeah, if he says jump, she will say, yeah, how high? I didn't know what it was, and I didn't like it, but it was just an excuse to have Harley Quinn and... It's just kind of an excuse to have Harley Quinn and Deadshot have their, like, a little moment. Like, they've got a few moments throughout the film where I think we're supposed to think that they're more connected than the other members of the team because they've got some emotional investment in something, the mission. I don't really know.
That's something that jumped out at me throughout, that especially as you get towards the end, it's like, we're supposed to be bonding now. They're to almost like a life bond where they're going to die for each other and go against their former principles and all that sort of stuff. You don't see any of that, and in fact, most of the time they're antagonizing each other and not getting on at all. And yet they haven't had time to bond.
James Bond.
Well, my next note, I've just got a note here which we haven't addressed yet, so I thought I'd just drop it in. Why didn't they get a good actor to play Rick Flag?
I've seen him in, he was in the RoboCop remake, and he's in House of Cards.
Are you telling me you've seen the RoboCop remake, but not RoboCop, Calvin?
Well, Gary Oldman's in the remake. Anyway, so yeah, I think at one point he may have been considered an up-and-coming star, like Sam Worthington, or who's that guy who was
Jeremy
in
Renner?
like? No, the other one, the one who was more tragic, who was in John Carter. John Carter, that one. What's his name? He was in Battleship. He's been in Nothing But Bombs.
James Bond.
And it's a bad character. I'll try and give him some benefit of the doubt there.
We're supposed to be invested in his relationship with the Enchantress, and he is trying to save her and whatever. And And then there's the final battle sequence, which is very, like, to say this film apparently had a budget of $175 million. I couldn't help but feel a lot of it just looks really cheap to me, and I don't know if it's because so much of it is dark and you can't really see what's going on a lot of the time. I don't know, I got, like, Alien vs. Predator Requiem vibes from it. And then some helicopters go down. It's all just action nonsense.
Here's my question. Harley Quinn escapes, right? And Amanda Waller goes to Deadshot, right? Shoot her, and I'll send your kid a birthday card or something. And then whatever it was he wanted, and then he decides not to shoot her, and so again we talk about this idea that they've bonded somehow, and that they've got some sort of connection now, and so he won't kill her. So, like, why didn't he do that for a start? Is my first question. Has he got a conscience now? And then later on, he says he doesn't shoot women or kids, which is sexist for a start, because it assumes women can't be in a position where they're powerful enough to. For people to want them dead. Like children, fair enough, because children are ultimately innocent, like, so you can understand that. All right. But my point is that means Deadshot is not just a ruthless mercenary. He's not just an assassin. He's making moral choices about the people he kills. In which case, he is morally responsible for their deaths. And so if he goes like, oh yeah, well, they were a gangland sort of criminal guy, so I can kill them, that's fine. But then the only person we actually see him killing on the job is someone who's being taken to court to inform and snitch on the I don't guess the mafia or whatever sort of big gang thing that's going on. So he's killing him so that crime can continue, or and that might be a bad person who was involved in the gang, and so we're all right with that. And he's a bit greasy and looks like a bit of a knob, so it's fine.
Yeah,
but ultimately what he's doing is murder, and it's an act of evil.
Yeah, but they just take great pains to establish him as someone with something of a moral compass. Like, everyone that he kills is a man, and they're probably even worse than he is.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, the no women, no kids thing.
We're supposed to like him for that.
I mean, it's old school for a start.
Yeah, but that's the mentality of a lot of the people who are going to be watching this thing, who are just, oh yeah, you don't hit a woman because whatever, that's not chivalrous or something. It's, women and children first, all that. Whereas, the three of us, like, if we were on the Titanic, I'm sure we'd be flinging them out of the boats so that we could put our legs up. But we're probably more morally reprehensible than the characters in this film.
See, I'd be in the what's the working class bit of the ship called?
Steerage.
Yeah, I'd be in steerage. I'd be like trying to form a union. And how we could, if we all go on strike, we'll have to force them to give us proper suites on the nice cabins with a porthole and stuff.
I'd hit the buffet.
And Calvin, you'd be in the proper upper class bit, wouldn't you?
I like to think of myself there, yes.
But it is sexist, right? It's misogynistic, this film, in general.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, we hit that at the start when we were talking about how it treats Harley Quinn, but yeah. I mean, it is. And like I say, it's in a way that you don't really see that much anymore, frankly, in big mainstream films like this. It's in a way that feels quite outdated already.
Yeah, it's old school.
Should we talk about the ending? And then they're all going to go, all the villains team up, and they go and attack the Enchantress and defeat her. I'm skimming over all this action because it's all just boring and miserable.
The other thing is, right, okay, just before they go into the big final battle, Rick Flag is explaining what's happened and how June Moon, as the witch, escaped, right? And they're in a subway.
They're in a subway?
Yeah.
Does Jared come out and show off his old trousers? And they're really big.
I'm not sure I understand the reference.
Oh, he's making a God, you can tell it's getting late into the night, and we've been recording for a while because, yeah.
And he looks at the Joker and he says, "Your name's like my name."
Oh, you're talking about the Subway sandwich. I thought when you said Jared, I was thinking of the Joker. Right? Okay. God. All right. So anyway, they're in this tunnel.
What would a real life Suicide Squad be like? It'd be like Ian Brady, Jared from Subway. Who else would be in it? Who's a woman? Is Rosemary West still alive?
I reckon one of the McCann parents would be in there.
Oh,
but they'd be like pulling the strings behind the scenes.
They'd be the true villains.
Yeah.
Oh,
there'd be that spin doctor guy.
Oh, Alistair Campbell.
What was the publicity?
I'm entirely sure.
Don't you think he just seems like he, I'm not going for like the most evil people in the world. I'm just going for people that I think would be in this film.
Oh, okay.
Harvey Weinstein.
No, I'm talking about actual criminals, like not just bizarre characters. Human curios.
So they've got to be like actual,
like a real life
fellas.
Suicide Squad. Or maybe, no, because I'd quite like Derek
Piers Morgan.
No,
are these just people you'd like to commit suicide?
But he did all that phone hacking, didn't he? I mean, he settled out of court, but he's guilty as fuck. Oh, let's start some beef with him. He'll respond. We open on the film. Piers Morgan's just stamping on mice, and then in walks Rebecca Brooks.
Oh, brilliant!
Given that this is a pointless tangent where you just name media people you don't like, is this going anywhere? Okay, so basically we see the witch escaping, and like Rick Flag's telling the story, and she's got this huge bomb, and it's got like 2 seconds set on it, and she sets it going and then disappears, and that's how she escapes. But we never see how Rick Flag stops the bomb, but then the bomb is used later on. It's like an important plot device, because he just leaves it there. Because obviously he was a bit distressed, so he just decides to leave it there. Mm. But it's another flashback that they're trying to use to explain and get this bomb in a position. It doesn't make sense, it doesn't work, and also it doesn't... I'm sure we'd seen her escape earlier and it was different. None of it worked. It didn't make sense, it didn't add up, any of it. And it felt really... That was like the biggest point for me, where it just felt really desperate. They were hacking this together like they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't even know what the plot was, or like how it would work. Did you not notice that?
Yes! Yeah, I think I may have used this argument in the review of the year, and I believe that you said something along the lines of, this is a director who knows what he's doing.
No, I mean, I'm not exactly standing by that, but I don't think the director's at fault here.
I do.
I would have more respect for this director if he like came out and said like, yeah, actually they took the film away. Like the director of the most recent Fantastic Four film. Like if he came away and said, actually the studio
this
like
is a
took
much worse film than that Fantastic Four film. Like that Fantastic Four film is shit, but it's coherent.
Oh yeah, well, that was the other thing. This witch, right? She can travel through space and time, apparently at whim. You know, she just transports wherever she wants. We see her go to the other side of the world and back in a split second. So why does she then just decide to take on these guys in hand-to-hand combat with a couple of swords?
You'd think, yeah. I mean,
and then they have this big battle sequence, this big fight, and then she sort of steps away from them and goes, right, enough of this, and then there's just like waves her hand and all their weapons get pulled out of their hands. It's like, why didn't you just do that before? Is she just playing with them? Or I mean, obviously I know what it is. It's just like, oh, let's have a big fight sequence, that'll look cool. But it just makes the whole thing so worthless.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. No, what you're saying all makes sense. It just took you about 7 months to realise it.
One last thing I've got as well.
All right, Columbo.
When we one more question. At the end, Amanda Waller turns out she's still alive for some reason, and she still decides she's going to try and control them. And she's got this little iPhone thing where she's can kill them at a touch of a button, right? Why doesn't someone just, like, kill her? Why doesn't Deadshot shoot her in the face? Like, how long do you think it takes her to get that out of her purse, turn it on, put the passcode in, bring up the neck explosion app, get them up on screen? Like, just wait for her to put it down. And then how long does it take someone to kill her? Like, she's defenseless without it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. No arguments there then.
No.
Let's reevaluate our Suicide Squad ratings. Because what did you give it in the previous episode?
I gave it a 7.
Calvin, do you remember what you gave it?
Did I give it a 3? I feel like it was a 3.
That sounds about right. Okay, well, it's a 3 from me as well. Calvin, are you sticking with your 3?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my 3.
Alan, what are you giving it?
4.
Okay.
That's 3.3 recurring if you want to save yourself the calculator.
So we'll factor that in. We'll get a leaderboard going of all the films.
So are they making a second one?
Yeah. So inexplicably, they're pushing ahead with the DC universe, and yeah, one of the many upcoming films is Suicide Squad 2, and there's a number of shortlisted directors. Mel Gibson was being thrown around for a while, the name, and that makes perfect sense because after Hacksaw Ridge, it seems to be that he loves just making films where the tone is all over the fucking shop. So I can see why they'd want him for Suicide Squad. But they're also talking about Ruben Fleischer and the guy who directed Creed and the guy who directed 50-50 and Warm Bodies. So don't know what's going to happen there. And like we say, David Ayer's off doing this Gotham City Sirens spin-off thing, which could have been cool, but with him at the helm, I'm not expecting anything good. Generally, the DC universe is just like a fucking state, frankly. But the Batman's changed a bit. The solo Batman movie. When we last did our Batman episode, that was going to be directed by Ben Affleck himself. In the month since that episode, he has stepped away from it, and there's been a search for a new director. Speculation being that maybe he had too much to lose in terms of credibility if he tried to make a Batman film within this system, and like if it didn't end up being great, then it would just harm him and it wasn't worth it. So they brought in Matt Reeves to direct it. Matt Reeves, who directed the upcoming War of the Planet of the Apes, the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Cloverfield, and the English language remake of Let the Right One In, Let Me In. He's a competent guy, so it'll be interesting to see what he brings. I mean, he's basically had the script scrapped. They're writing it from the ground up, apparently. So I think with him working on it, it should be at least a 3-star movie, if nothing else.
Hopefully.
And weirdly enough, we need to mention, I suppose, it's just been announced that Joss Whedon is directing, writing, producing a Batgirl movie, which is, it's weird. It's like J.J. Abrams doing Star Trek and Star Wars. Like, the fact they've brought Joss Whedon in to make this film's really odd. And to be honest, this all really annoys me, because currently we're 3 for 3. There are 3 shit DC Universe movies. Now, it looks like they're going to keep up that trend for the foreseeable future. But
really? Do you think even Wonder Woman will be...
well, we'll get to that in a minute, I guess. But it certainly doesn't seem like they're going to turn it around all of a sudden to me. And that's going to annoy me all the more, because that if there's just this really good Batgirl film in the middle there, which I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being good with Joss Whedon at the helm, that's going to be really annoying. If there's like one great film and just a sea of turds that it's sat swimming in, is I'd rather they were just all shit. It would be less frustrating. But yeah, Wonder Woman's the one we're tying this episode in with. So yeah, how do you guys feel about Wonder Woman? Alan, I expect you know nothing about it and have no thoughts either way.
That would be correct.
All right, so Calvin, how do you feel about it?
I couldn't be more indifferent.
Yeah.
I've never seen any Wonder Woman thing ever. I have no reason to go and see this on the basis of the films that I've seen so far in the DC universe.
Yeah.
The only reason why I would rather why I want it to be good and I would like it to be a success is because it's a female starring action superhero movie, and I think that that's a good thing. But apparently there's been very little marketing push for this from Warner Brothers. Unlike the other films, there's been talk of they're just not even bothering.
Well, this is it. I've seen them being accused of sexism because they're apparently, particularly in America, really not marketing it, not buying up much ad space and what have you. My guess is that the film's shit and they're just cutting their losses because they've kind of learned that spending loads on marketing isn't worth it. I don't know. It's weird. Initially, when I saw the trailer, loads of people I know were really excited. They said, "No, it looks great. It looks like it's going to be the one to turn it around." Patty Jenkins is directing. Blah 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 blah. And I watched the trailer, and it looked shit. It looked every bit as shit as every other DC film we've had. It just looked like bollock Zack Snyder style action with nothing in it. I've since seen a slightly different trailer a few times at the cinema, which I think is more focused on plot and character and humour, and it has won me over a little bit. Because in theory, the idea of this superwoman knocking around in World War One, that could be quite cool if it's done well. And the new trailer looks like it has a bit more humour and understanding of how it should play itself. So I'm hoping it'll be good, but DC's actions certainly don't suggest they have much faith in it. And, this is the fourth film in a franchise at the minute that has turned out nothing but shit. So I'm not looking forward to it particularly. I guess we'll see.
And we'll be revisiting the DC universe again later this year, I suppose, if we do decide to talk about Justice League.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
This year, November this year.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, what would we pitch to DC if they came knocking? Yeah, so Calvin, how would you try and make sense of this mess?
Well, I was very disappointed at the lack of suicide in a film called Suicide Squad. So, my pitch for a Suicide Squad film is a bunch of old people are living in a hospice. So I was going to do this as old versions of the Suicide Squad. So Harley Quinn was going to be 80 years old, and it was going to be all these old superheroes. But then I thought, I don't actually like any of these characters. I want to make my own and cast my own people. So the film is called Suicide Squad. And it's a bunch of old people living in a hospice, where they've all been led to believe that they only have a few days left to live when they were admitted. In reality, they had months left to live, and they find this out. And the reason why they were admitted is because the hospice was losing money because people are living longer, and the NHS has been dismantled by a right-wing conservative government. So
hang on, have you and Alan swapped pictures before this?
It's having an effect on me, honestly. It's all this election stuff. So the old people are being kept there. They're being lied to, basically, to stay in this hospice so that the proprietor, if you can call that, of the hospice, can make money. Now, we're going to have 5 main old people. They're going to be played by Michael Caine, because he's in all these films about old people. He's in one with Morgan Freeman and Alan Alda at the moment.
Freeman.
The other old people I've got in my film, I've got Michael Caine, I've got Helen Mirren, Miriam Margolyes, Roger Moore, and Charles Dance. Those are my 5 old people. So, now, they all learn about the behaviour of this villainous hospice administrator, who I'm thinking can be played by Chris O'Dowd, and they all decide to go to the Dignitas clinic in Switzerland to seek assisted suicide as a... I thought he hasn't played a full-on villain yet, and I think we could have some fun with that. But he'd also be a bit goofy, they want this to be lighthearted. So they're going to go to the Dignitas clinic in Switzerland to seek assisted suicide as a fuck you to this bastard for making them spend the last few months of their lives stuck in this crappy hospice. Their passports are held in a safe in the hospice, so the old folks decide they're going to have one last adventure and take a road trip to Switzerland. So we're going to have lots of funny and heartwarming moments along the way as the old people get in situations and talk about their lives and stuff, while Chris O'Dowd is chasing after them with a psychiatrist played by Natalie Dormer, and is trying to have the old people declared insane so that they can be incarcerated at his facility for the rest of their short lives. Eventually, the old people get to the clinic in Switzerland, and there can be some kind of showdown here with Chris O'Dowd. And I think one of the old people should find out that they were never terminally ill after all, as a last-minute twist. But they decide that they still want to go to sleep with their friends because the trip has been so wonderful, and they can't imagine life getting any better than this. And then for Chris O'Dowd's comeuppance, we can end the film with him coughing up blood and hinting that he may too be terminally ill. We can have him smoking cigarettes throughout the whole film, and then it's like, it's caught up with you, hasn't it? And that's the end. So they are the Suicide Squad. They'll get tattoos along the way. A heartwarming British comedy for the whole family.
Yeah.
There we go.
Shall I do mine now?
Yes, go on then, Alan. What would you do?
I was just drawn by the fact that there was no proper backstories to these characters, so I did the prequels that should have been made, or rather the films that should have been made before this, introducing all the characters. I actually did one for all the main.
Wait, are you pitching 6 films?
Well,
now?
I did ones for all the main characters, but then varying levels of boringness. Crocodile Dundee and Kangaroo Jack, they're both pretty, we don't know enough about them to create a story. So it was like, I thought the Boomerang guy was like, at least he's like, he could be like a working class Aussie bloke, and then he's just like, he's the comedy entry in it. But there's not like enough character there for me to do anything with it without the backstory. And like Harley Quinn, for example, is like, that's obvious. We know we've already talked about it. You know what we're supposed to do with that. I was quite happy with my one for the samurai girl.
Yeah.
Just as a quick little. So you could have her husband is a great samurai. She's like the doting little wife. But then he has this magic sword. It traps souls and all that. He gets involved with something where he basically gets caught. He's going to be done. So he kills himself in a kind of ritualistic suicide. And so then his own soul is trapped in that sword. And so when she gets the sword back, she like swears vengeance, and she's right, I'm going to learn to be a samurai and take vengeance. And then that would be the story. So that kind of whole, like, just the development of how she came to be in this situation. How she would get to become mates with Rick Flag, I don't know. But then that was just, I think that's quite a nice way to go with that. But the most detailed one, I guess, because I came up with one for Diablo as well, but essentially it's just Incredible Hulk. It's, so in the interest of just keeping it brief, we'll just leave that one. So Deadshot was kind of the interesting one. He's all about his kid, we know that, so that's where the backstory wants to come. So he's this young, kid, he's born, raised in West Philadelphia. He gets into like a minor scuffle as a young man. So his mum sends him to live in Bel Air with some rich relatives. And then one day he's out with his cousin and they go to a cash machine and they get mugged. And then when he's protecting his cousin, he gets shot, and so ends up in hospital. But this experience changes him, right? So after he recovers, he gets a bit like obsessed with protecting himself. He starts going to a gun range and learning how to shoot and that sort of thing. And he discovers he's got a special talent for it. And again, I don't want to, like Saul was saying earlier, it's not supernatural talent. It's just he's obviously got a skill for it, and he trains and makes himself better. He gets quite obsessed with it. Then during this time, like he has to get somebody pregnant. So we can have a little side story of some woman, he knocks her up and then they don't get on. So that's that. So you got that. But now he's got the value in his life of fatherhood. Now we know from Vin Diesel that this is very important.
Obviously you were doing the Fresh Prince, but are you specifically doing the episode of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will takes a bullet for Carlton at the...
Well, I did. That was my starting point. Like I've moved on from it now. But yeah, I was. Yeah, so
can we have Alfonso Ribeiro in this?
Yeah, he'll play the dad. He's now a father, and so he's trying to earn some money to look after his daughter. But he's just a kid from the hood. He hasn't got a great education. The only skill he's got is shooting, and he's working this shitty dead end job. And so eventually, he kind of falls into someone from the gang know about his skills with guns, and they offer him work as like an enforcer. And he doesn't want to do it. We have to show that he's conflicted. Like he doesn't want to hurt people, but he has to do it for his daughter. That's more important. He has to provide for his daughter. And so he becomes a bit of a gangbanger. Not like that. He finds solace in the fact that he's only going after bad guys. He kills like he finds a quantum of solace in that, and they're all drug dealers and like bad guys basically. So he doesn't feel too bad about killing them, even though he himself is working for a bad guy and all that. But eventually. Whatever reason, this is the big denouement thing. He gets called on to kill an innocent, someone who couldn't possibly have done anything evil. So he refuses to do it, and this draws the wrath of the gang who has been working with him. And so basically, that's the setup. He's forced to go rogue, and that's how he ends up becoming, the dead shot that we all know. And he's been tarnished by life a little bit. He's cynical, but he wants to give his child a good chance in life that he never had or whatever. So that's it. And it's kind of a setup for the character that we find in Suicide Squad. It's kind of a prequel idea, really.
Yeah.
That was it. Okay, Sol?
This whole DC cinematic universe thing, it's not working, is it?
You just pack it in.
No.
So is your pitch, pack it in, don't do anything.
Burn it to the ground. Wipe the slate clean. Reboot. I think enough is enough. Like, it's not working.
Enough is enough.
You've not got a good foundation for a franchise here. Let's just try again. Like, people will it's a world now where you can do that. Everyone will kind of scoff, but they'll still go and watch the new Batman movie when you release it in 2 years, so it's fine.
I mean, did it with Spider-Man? Worked out all right.
Yeah, so...
Oh, wait, no it didn't. Sorry, no, disregard that. We're yet to figure out if it is going to work out.
Which time are you talking about?
The second time. I was thinking of the Andrew Garfield one, and then I thought, oh no, wait, shit, they rebooted that again after just 2 films.
Yeah. They need to appoint someone as like a godfather for the franchise to oversee the whole thing.
You don't think that Zack Snyder is?
I was about to say they've sort of got that at the minute, but we need someone good who like understands the characters. So ideally, you want someone who's like involved in the comic publishing wing or something. But I don't know, just spend some time, find someone who likes the characters, who understands them, who's like capable, and put them in charge. And look to the Batman animated series and the subsequent spin-offs, the Superman series, the Justice League series, Batman Beyond, all these things that came in the 90s and early noughties. Look at them for inspiration, because they remain some of the very best versions of those characters, like some of the only instances of those characters working on screen, and use that as a basis, and the comics highlights and everything. So do what Marvel did.
Can I make a quick prediction?
All right.
Is the Condiment King going to make an appearance?
I hope so.
Now you want Clock King.
I haven't written him into this, but he's bloody better. He will do. He'll be in the Batman movie. The first, yeah. He's the best villain.
Yeah.
Could you make the Condiment King gritty? Can you sell it as a legitimate villain? Can you make it work? Like acidic ketchup or something? Like he's just an acid, throws acid at people.
Well, he, if I remember correctly, he is a stand-up comedian who's been brainwashed into adopting this ridiculous persona.
Oh, but by day he works in a fast food restaurant, but he's trying to be a stand-up comedian, and he's having to work. I
think it's just a bad series of puns, because he's like a pun comedian.
Oh, he could be played by Tim Vine.
Yeah. But I think there's like a series of these like shit supervillains, and I think it's the Mad Hatters like brainwashed a load of people to become supervillains as like a distraction or something.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, you can make that work. Yeah. They're just it's like a Mystery Men kind of or Kick-Ass, that kind of attitude, isn't it? Yeah, you could have fun with that.
And like, yeah, you could probably make it gritty and more realistic, but you'd have to make it a comedy. I think. I don't think you could get away with it as a serious thing. Anyway, no, I think this new cinematic universe needs to be built from the ground up. Needs to be built from the ground up, like Marvel did. Just emulate Marvel. And that means start with a smaller film. Don't go straight in with Superman or Batman. Marvel started with Iron Man. They kind of tested the water on a smaller level. So maybe you start the thing with Wonder Woman or The Flash, who are, they're kind of B-list characters. People are aware of them, but they're not massive, popular people. So it's a low-stakes game, and if you completely fuck it up, you can just start again without problems. Like, just pick a different character. And no other films enter production until this film is complete. Right, because that's the biggest problem at the minute is they're locked in. Like,
I don't think you understand how the film industry works. So,
but the biggest problem they've got at the moment is, it's like Marvel made Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk together, but they didn't have Iron Man 2 already in production before Iron Man came out. They didn't have Thor or Captain America in production. They were kind of hedging their bets a bit. The Incredible Hulk could have easily stood alone from Iron Man if necessary, if one of them had been, dreadful and they needed to distance themselves. And that's how this should work. They're just getting the franchise started. They don't need to be making 3 films a year in this franchise. Like, make Wonder Woman or The Flash and wait and see how it goes down and build on it. Because at the moment, they're locked in. This is the thing. They probably do want to reboot, but Justice League and Wonder Woman are both in post-production. Aquaman's filming, and they're deep into pre-production on a load of other films. And they can't really just wipe the slate clean at this point, because what would they do? Like, announce that these films don't count anymore, but then release the remaining few to diminish the box office, or... I don't know. They're in a difficult place, and I say they just wipe it clean, chuck them in the bin. No one cares about those films. But yeah, emulate Marvel. So go for dark, cartoony fun, like the old animated series, like the Arkham video games that exist. They've got the tone pretty much spot on. Split the difference between the animated series and the Chris Nolan films. That's what you want. That's basically the Arkham video games, because then it's different enough to what's come before in the films, in that you can have the likes of Mr. Freeze and stuff show up, but it's still got a degree of being grounded and what have you. It's similar to what they're dancing around at the moment, but a bit less gritty and what have you, a bit more willing to embrace fun and colour if necessary. And then just hire talented people, let them have their vision to a point, like Marvel, under this, Godfather figure. I mean, fucking hell, you've got Joss Whedon on board, so let him relaunch it. Let Batgirl be the first new film out the gate. Joss Whedon's Batgirl, starting again, and, make it work that way. And embrace the kind of outsider films, but don't go too full on. This is the other thing. We don't need all of the members of Justice League in the first Justice League film, or set up before the first Justice League film. So at the minute, with this weird effort to kind of establish the Flash and Wonder Woman and everyone in these earlier films, it's unnecessary. You can chuck a few people in, like they did with Hawkeye and Black Widow and the Avengers, on top of the people we've already met. Although I suppose they had little cameos in earlier films, didn't they? But yeah, just start with Batgirl, maybe do the Flash, maybe do a Joker Harley Quinn movie, maybe Superman, Justice League. And that should be it for Phase 1. And then Phase 2, you can start doing sequels, get to Batman, get to some of the weirder ones like Martian Manhunter and stuff. And just build like a proper foundation that you can make films with, and get to stuff like Batman Beyond down the line, and the really exciting stuff like that.
I think the better plan would be to get rid of all the superhero stuff and try and figure out what the next trend is going to be. That's what I always think.
Like Universal Monsters next week.
No.
Oh, spooky. Well, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. And this is our 52nd episode, so that means we've been doing the show for an entire year now, which is, well, I'm frankly amazed we've kept it up. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed, who likes us on Facebook and follows us on Twitter. And an extra special thank you to those of you who actually engage with us and write us comments and what have you. Yeah, just thank you. It's great to know that you're enjoying the show. And here's to the next year and beyond. Have a good week. Take care.